VigilanteWilliamson here with a very simple question, and that is AEW profitable? Before we get into this video, please, if you like the video, and I am very close to 200 subs, so I would really appreciate if I can get to 200 subs before the end of the year. So yeah, if you like what we do here, please sub. We talk about wrestling, sports, a bunch of stuff over here. In any event, going back to AEW, the rumor is, shout out to Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, he has a breakdown of all this, but the rumor is that AEW has made $154 million in revenue. That does not include profit. We don't know how much their expenses are. That's kind of a mystery. And so it's led people wondering, are they profitable? Well, a lot of people thinking no. A lot of people thinking that despite getting $154 million, that their costs are much more. And this is something I agree with. Now, I think a lot of people have got themselves in this bubble where if you're critical of AEW, that means you're a quote-unquote AEW hater, and they make up this whole logic in their own heads of, well, you don't want to see AEW succeed, you just want to bash AEW. And I think a lot of these fans, similar to Tony Khan, think they're helping AEW when they're hurting AEW. Let me explain. I am not critical of AEW just because. I do not like WWE just because. Granted, I grew up with them, but I also grew up with WCW. I grew up in a two-party system when it comes to wrestling, at least from major companies. And it's necessary for AEW to exist if wrestling's ever going to grow and ever be mainstream again. And that is one of my goals. That's what I hope. That's why I'm covering it on this channel, despite it not necessarily being the best ratings draw for myself. But I still talk about it from time to time because I want it to do better. I want it to be more mainstream. I want it to be more acknowledged as the entertainment industry, Roman Reigns pun not intended. That said, I think fans think if we protect AEW, if we defend AEW at all costs, despite if there's reality or truth to the criticism, we're doing them a favor, when really they're insulating AEW, creating a bubble effect in which people who are loyal to AEW, if they look at fan feedback, they can, oh, these guys are haters, these are the quote unquote true fans, and then they never improve. Now, I don't want that to happen. I don't necessarily know if that is happening, but it seems to have at least been the case during certain stretches of AEW's run. Similarly, I think Tony Khan thinks he's doing athletes a favor by keeping them under contract and not using them. And so we get back to the profitability. I feel like AEW is not profitable, but could make a lot of headway getting close to that if they cut a significant portion of the roster. Because of the pandemic and because of WWE during 2020 cutting so many wrestlers at a very dark time in this world's history, right? No one knew what was going to happen for the foreseeable future, and all these people were getting cut, and everyone looked at Vince McMahon as evil, greedy billionaire, and here's Tony Khan. He's doing the right thing by keeping everyone under contract and making sure people can still feed their families and whatnot. And I don't want to disparage that. I don't want to knock that. I don't want to say there's nothing to this, but two things. One, because I don't care what anyone says, WWE absolutely, at least at one point, and probably even still, viewed AEW as a threat. Their roster was bloated. They had more people under contract than they normally would, because if you guys remember 10 years ago, if you're an older fan, they would have cuts throughout the year, but WWE had stopped doing that for a few years, or at least a couple years, as AEW was getting itself together between 2018 and 2019. So that means a lot of wrestlers who normally would have got cut stayed under contract. They tried to hoard wrestlers. If they could find anybody, they kept them under contract or signed them to a contract. So they went a lot more expansive with their roster than they normally would have. And in the pandemic, when things got tight, they got rid of a lot of people that they normally wouldn't have even had in the first place. And it looked bad, and I'm not going to say it was forgivable or the right thing at the time, given the timing, but it was a necessary thing for them to stay afloat financially. Two things as an editor editing this video. I realize that some people will say 2020 WWE had record profits, but I think a lot of those profits had to do with the cuts, not in spite of them. I don't think they were just profitable. I know they do weird accounting things, so they counted the fact that that money was falling off the books towards their profitability. And I also wanted to say that Vince McMahon has reversed course, and obviously they're not owned by just Vince anymore. They're owned by Endeavor, and Vince seems to be on the outs. But they noteworthily reversed course, and he even joked about giving AEW more people to sign. And I honestly think there was something to that, because AEW did sign more people, and I think it's bloating up their books and blowing up their roster. All right, let me get back to the video. And similarly, I think AEW needs to do that now. Maybe not as drastic and dramatic. And I get that Tony Khan liked the clout off the internet for being a sensible billionaire, quote unquote, and someone who cares, but it's not actually helping people. We hear Britt Baker complaining about how little mic time she's gotten. I'm not saying cut Britt Baker. I think she should be on TV. But why is that the case? Think about somebody like Abaddon. I don't think she's on TV except for around Halloween time. So you really are hiring this person all year round for 1 month. And how is she going to get better? It's already hard enough to get better because AEW doesn't have a PC. They only do everything once a week. And if you're on TV, whether it's Dynamite, Collision, or Rampage, or a dark match, you're screwed. You don't get to wrestle. Maybe you wrestle on Ring of Honor, which I guess is a separate company. That's another can of worms for another day. But that's just one person in Abaddon. There's a lot of wrestlers in the same boat. We're contracted to AEW. They're not getting better. They're just wasting their prime in AEW's catering. And it doesn't make sense. And I need to go back a few years ago. If you guys remember pre-AEW, let's say between the years of 2014 and 2019, you could go to your local indie and maybe see a guy like MJF or a Big Swole. I know I did in Charlotte, shout out to PWX. Or, you know, Ethan Page. A lot of these wrestlers that ended up in AEW, and obviously Big Swole is one of the few people who has got released and didn't get the best way out. And I guess it just doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Who cares what Big Swole thinks? Screw her, because Tony Khan has spoken. And so if he's a dick to her, no one cares. That pissed me off, by the way, at the time, the way Tony Khan treated her. That's notwithstanding, let me get back to it. The point is, the indies were saturated with a lot of good wrestlers. And they're not anymore because AEW is hoarding them. I like the fact that local indies, you could get really, really talented wrestlers any given week or any given month. Outside of Matt Cardona, aka Zack Ryder, there's no real big wrestlers out in the indies. Hell, if you remember, Cody Rhodes used to be in the indies. Yes, he was in Ring of Honor, but he might go to a random indie in New England, a random indie somewhere else. And a lot of these wrestlers, yes, they have the ability to, and some of them do, but I think a lot of these wrestlers would be a lot better if they were full-time in New Japan, full-time in All Japan, full-time in Noah, full-time in AAA, full-time just indie wrestling, out and about on the indies. Granted, there's some protections with AEW, I understand that, but they would at least be getting better, building up their name, and have a chance to potentially come to an AEW or a WWE with a little bit more name value, a little bit more value overall as a talent. And a lot of that talent is getting wasted, and is getting wasted at the expense of AEW's profitability. AEW is going to need a pretty big rights deal to get profitable. There's no doubt about that. If 154 million isn't enough, which we don't know, it could be, maybe they're right breaking even, who knows? I'm not doing their books, but if 154 million isn't enough, all things considered, they're going to need a big rights deal. They're going to need at least 100, 125, maybe even 150 million off of their rights deal per year in order to be profitable. I'm not sure what they're worth to WBD, aka Warner Brothers Discovery, but maybe they can get that. I'll talk about in a totally different video on a totally different channel how the mainstream entertainment business is struggling, and AEW's ratings, no matter what you think about them, they outpace a lot of networks. A lot of networks don't average 800,000 to 900,000 on cable anymore. They're usually the biggest show on cable on Wednesday nights, so they are a big show. They are a big deal no matter what you think about them, or at least a big enough deal for them to get a potentially big deal. But we will see what happens. We will see what happens. But in short, I'm only focusing really on the roster. There's a lot of things they need to probably cut. in order to get to profitability. And that needs to be something they prioritize. I'm not sure what they're going to do. Again, I'm critical of AEW's on-screen content, but I do want them to get better. I do want them to make a product that is more successful so wrestling can get more successful. I don't necessarily want them to be WWE-like. I'm not saying every change they need to make is something to be more like WWE. I think maybe they can make changes to be more like themselves and more original. I don't necessarily hate the fact that they're a little bit more match focused, even though my biggest issue is there's so many botches and a lot of sloppiness and meaninglessness behind matches. I do think they need to build their matches better, but them being a match focused product, I have no problem with. I'm cool with that. Every product shouldn't be the same. They can still do a better job of building it though. One more editor's note. I realized I forgot to talk about Fight Forever, AEW's video game. And that video game was a huge wasted opportunity. I realize not all the blame should be given to them and a lot needs to be given to the developer, but it has to be said, if that game was successful, AEW might be profitable right now. And them not supporting that game like they should have, not demanding that game be put up to a certain standard. And again, I'm saying that I don't know what the royalty would have been for them getting something for the game, but that game being successful would have done something huge for their brand. Similar to what the wrestling games back in the day did. It really helped WWE and WCW's profile, having those cool Aki games. No Mercy, obviously, WrestleMania 2000, and god damn it, was it NWO Revenge? Was that the one? But yeah, those type of games, and that's what this game was similar to. I think that could have really helped the profitability of AEW. All right, back to the end of the video. You care about AEW's profitability? I do, because I feel like they're going to go out of business at some point. I know everyone thinks money's infinite because Tony Khan's a billionaire, and well, he's not, his dad is, and his dad's actually owning the company. That's another can of worms. But I know, hey, we're coming up to an economic downturn, and so these billionaires may be taking huge losses, and as a result, they can't afford to take a company that's continually losing money, which it seems like AEW is doing. So what do you guys think? Do you not care about the numbers? Do you care about the numbers? Do you think that they can do anything to be more profitable? Or do you just hate AEW and fuck them, WWE's better? Whatever you think, you let me know. If you like the video, please like the video. If you're so obliged to share and subscribe, please do that. And even if you do none of these things, thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. Good night and God bless. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.